The spiritual path is a path to victory. I, Hunter Salazar, am dead. I walk the spiritual path to reclaim my life. For I know that life is not just the combination of molecules and elements that create this body. True life is that which was before the differentiation, before the disillusionment, before we were separate. True life is going back to that union from which we come. Going back there requires walking a path that is very isolating, a path that we find few friends along, for few can show us the way. But those who we find are people who will lead us to the victory of which I speak. When it comes to the spiritual path, there are few things that can be called not spiritual. For even when we fail, we learn. For even when we are defeated, we learn why we are defeated, why we were defeated. And once we learn of that defeat, we realize how to gain victory. If we are working towards a god or a spirit, there may be some worship involved, but really it's attuning yourself. And those things that get in the way of attunement to that spirit or god are the things that will allow us to fall on the spiritual path, but we can get back up. This falling, the gravity of compassion, and why do I say the gravity of compassion? Because the ability to experience this universe as a separate piece, to allow agency for every single soul, to have that ability to choose as with the illusion of individuality is a blessing. It is compassion. It is the segmentation of what we once were and all the pieces coming back home in the way that they wish. Now, while the path home is wonderful, we must realize that we cannot get attached to things that we see on the roadside. If we see that this certain practice is wonderful to us and we like the power that it gives us, we must realize it is just a stepping stone to the next phase of our journey. If we start to gain the ability to speak with the dead or use chaotic magic to gain what we want, then we must use all of that force that we have at our disposal to reach the next step along our path and not wallow in it, not to be held back by any power gained, but to use it in the proper manner. This is true in the business world, this is true in just being a human being, but along the spiritual path, we see the peak in the distance. All other paths do not see that peak. They see only immediate goal and immediate gains and how to get to preconceived goals that are very rarely considered in their entirety. A businessman or somebody who's a staunch capitalist might say, okay, I'm going to make this much more a year. I'm going to make this much more a year. I'm going to get this amount of political clout or clout in the business world. Or I'm going to get this many cars or have this big a house. They define themselves by these small fluctuations in material that never last, that are not meant to last. But they make these goals for themselves expecting to meet happiness, expecting to meet contentment through this merger of short visualization and immediate material gain. But we must take up a long-term visualization of who we truly are. And who we truly are souls trying to get back to what we once were. This is the conservative ideology, but the conservatives take it in a different way. Now, the idea that we were once better than we are now, that is true. But many conservative people tend to say, okay, well, only following this religion or this spiritual path or this ideology will bring us back to that point where we were perfect. And we've just been delineating since then. That is false. That is bias. That is speculation in its entirety. Because we assume that we conceive what humanity was and that it can be confined into a single book, a single idea, a single way. When in reality, all ways lead home, all spiritual ways. Now, even the ways that are dark, that are evil, that are very materialistic and dominating, control-oriented, even those will eventually teach the soul that it was futile. So in a way, the entire universe is always teaching us how to get home. We just have to see the signs along the roadside and not get attached to the obstacles along our path, thinking that they are places where we may enjoy ourselves forever, or we may enjoy our power forever. But these are isolated springs, soon to be drawn out and spread throughout the rest of the path. And we imagine that these enjoyments, these luxuries, will last forever, but they are meant to only satisfy single moments in time. Time is made up of moments, yes, but each of these moments should not be attached to. We should not attach ourselves to the circumstances in a moment. We must attach ourselves to one thing alone, complete union with everything, bringing everything back to what it once was. And this does not mean making people follow our religion or our spiritual path. No, this means that we must perfect ourselves first and foremost, before we dare to say somebody else is walking incorrectly. We must perfect ourselves, we must analyze ourselves, and we must find those threads that lead home, because that thread is always within us, and it's multidimensional. Yggdrasil is lined with dimensions, and these threads wind down these dimensions, up these dimensions, in all directions. But wherever the soul is, that soul can find itself, its own thread, and follow it home. So, victory along the spiritual path is true life. The life that is everlasting. The spiritual path is the path to victory. Thank you very much for watching. All of you, have a great day.